Design shapes the way you live. I'm Nico, an interior design expert focused on the connection between home and well-being. Using science, design, and professional expertise, I'll help you shape a space that elevates your mindset and enhances your well-being. Let's create space for better living, starting now. Did you know that 25% of Australians feel overwhelmed by the clutter in their homes? And 36% of people in the UK report dissatisfaction with the sheer amount of things they own. In fact, 1 out of 10 American households rent extra storage space to deal with their stuff. Where I live, it's very common to see cars parked in the driveway and not in the garage because the garage is full of stuff. But what if I told you that the clutter you're dealing with might be more than just a frustrating mess? It could be standing in the way of your ability to make clear, intentional decisions about how to use and design your spaces. In today's episode, we're diving into the power of decision-making in your home by simplifying the choices you make, especially when it comes to decluttering. You can actually prioritize and critique your space to create an environment that aligns with your goals and supports your personal growth. Are you ready to transform your home into a space that works for you? Let's get started. So I want to ask you a question. What's the reason that you make design decisions and decor decisions in your home? Why do you mull over choices? And why often do you feel overwhelmed by the choices you have to make? There seems to be so many choices and options out there, right? So many ways a room can go. The decisions you have to make can feel somewhat endless, and they can also make you feel a bit hopeless and depleted. And the reason we have a design decision to make is simply because you come to a place where you want to improve your home, to make an improvement in how it looks and how you use it, how you interact with it, the routines that you have in the space. So the reason is you want to make choices and decide on ways that will improve your life. So improvements to your home equals improvements to your life, right? And what I've learned is when you're faced with making a decision, you can come to it in many different ways. You can make it on impulse, almost unconsciously, automatically, or you can really think it through. And when you look at your home and all the choices and decisions that you get to make on how it looks, whether it's a big choice opportunity or a small one, for example, like adding a bookshelf and then styling it, or renovating a bathroom, but no matter what, you have the opportunity to think it through and to come to the best outcome. And I think when you're looking to get the best outcome in home design and style decisions, you need to be thinking impact and long-term gain. How is this going to help you? How is it going to impact you for the better? Clear your head, calm you down, whatever it is that you need it to do. Even when we think about taking the short-term gain for a second, and I want to talk about clutter because clutter compounds so quickly, and how even just shoving your clutter away in things like a catch-all drawer instead of putting them away in a proper place, or a room when you walk in, you can't really tell, or it's not very obvious, what the room is predominantly used for. The room has sort of become this catch-all where there's just overlapping uses. I had a moment the other day, and I just want to share this story because to demonstrate kind of how easily clutter can happen. I was needing a pencil sharpener. So I go into my kitchen and I go to the drawer where it lives. And I take the pencil sharpener out and I walk to the other side of the kitchen to sharpen it into the garbage. And I finish, I close the bin, and then I walk back to the drawer where it lives to put it away. But in that moment, I was kind of in a rush and I just went to put the sharpener down on the counter above the drawer where it lives. And I stopped myself in that second because I thought, why wouldn't I just put this back in the drawer where it lives instead of on the counter? You know, how much time was that really going to save me? You know, we're talking opening a drawer and putting it away versus just putting it on the counter. And so I put it away where it belonged. But it got me thinking about how often that happens if you're in a rush or if something doesn't actually have a proper home. I mean, that was a tiny little sharpener. But what happens if that was clothing What happens if that was shoes? What happens if that was boxes or toys or small appliances or whatever it may be? This is how clutter starts to compound. And as we start adding things into our homes, more purchases or whatever it is, that can increase. That's essentially how our rooms become catch-alls, where the function of the room is blurred, where you can't really tell what the room is used for. And then when that happens, it stops you from being able to make appropriate design choices because you can't even see the potential of the room. You're focused and distracted by the clutter and the mess. Let's imagine you walk into your living room, which has become that catch-all for decor and furniture and personal items, maybe toys, basically just randomness. And you've been wanting to redesign it into this sort of calming, relaxing space. And yet every time you try to make a decision to move in that direction, you feel stuck. You can't decide on what stays and what goes and what needs to be added. You just feel that sense of overwhelm. Yet your to-do list is still living in your head, right? The clutter, the overlap of function has become a barrier to actually being able to see this through. Your vision for the space and how you want to use it, how you need it to function, and how you know it can be improved on, and how much you need that improvement in your life. So I want to share something with you, and I want you to remember this because I think it's a really important piece of information. So I want you to remind yourself of this. As you're trying to decide and you're trying to make the right choices, remember, you're not going to be able to make good choices all day long every day. You will have times in your day when you are the most productive, when you have the energy to declutter and execute on where things need to go, the proper place where things should go. There's research done on something called decision fatigue, which is basically you get tired from making decisions and then you're unable to make decisions because of this fatigue. So if you've had to make a lot of decisions in your day at work or wherever, then you may have used up all your mental energy to make those decisions. So you may not have any gas left in the tank. And so to recognize this and give yourself some grace on the fact that this day or that day may not be the day to tackle the clutter in your living room. I'm sure you're aware personally that there are certain hours or weeks or days where it's just felt like a lot. It's been a lot of decisions, a lot of working through things, and it's just felt a bit overwhelming. And if you're trying to make any home decisions during these times, if you want to be effective, it actually will only make you feel depleted. So in order to create your spaces, you have to create space to make effective decisions. Yet I'm sure you also know that there are days when you are on, right? You have the energy, you can think clearly. And it's probably these times when you start feeling creative and start thinking about what needs to be changed and how to improve your home. You get excited about it. But if you can shift that from adding more in those times when you're feeling that momentum and you're feeling that energy and inspiration, if you can shift that from adding more to your mental list of to-dos to execution on that mental list, then you will start seeing results. And I'll share some specifics towards the end that will help. If you can start executing, that's a great place to be because execution is about weighing the options so that you have come to the best outcome. Because here's the thing. I think when people decide to declutter, they get all empowered and hopeful, which is great. But often the emotion and the excitement of the prospect of change is where it ends. And proper planning just never happens. Or the excitement carries you to start, but there's no follow through and you don't see it through. So the act of organization actually leaves you more disorganized because it's more impulsive than it is intentional. But the good news is that you can come up with a plan. There's a way that you can execute with the end in mind, and it will eliminate a lot of the choices that are actually bogging you down. Because we know that too many choices can be a bad thing. right? Especially when you're confused and conflicted. I mean, when you're in that state, when you're just feeling confused and you're unsure of which direction to go, if I were to give you more and more choices, well, you could do this or that, or why don't you think about this, or ooh, what about that? That is just going to feel even more overwhelming. And the amazing thing is when you declutter, when you analyze how your space needs to function, back to the example I shared at the beginning, if you're wanting your living room to be calm and restful, but currently it's a catch-all, right? It catches all the madness, then you won't be able to analyze the design of your room, the layout, the furniture plan, the uses, the amount of objects, where the best focal points are, if you have adequate lighting, and simple things like the enjoyment of the space, like appreciating seeing shadows and sunlight dancing on your walls. When making home decisions, it's really important to address the function of a room, how you want and need it to perform, how it affects you. If you have a desire, let's say, to become an avid reader, then you'll need to create a space that helps you achieve that goal. And if there is a mental load going to the clutter and the distractions of the room, then you all of a sudden are expelling your mental energy on that instead of deciding where everything needs to go in order to be able to create the room you need to foster and support the goal of becoming an avid reader. And when we are speaking about interior design, when you want to create a beautiful space to read in, and when we have trouble making decisions on the choices you have to make it beautiful, from which rug do I want and how big do I need the rug, what style do I want in this room, which pieces do I keep and what should go, if your energy and willpower is low, you'll make more quick and impulsive decisions. And you'll often do what's easy instead of what's right. You won't think things through, and you'll always be making more sort of safe decisions. And if you're making safe decisions, I want to focus on this for a second here, because making safe decisions as a result of low energy and willpower will actually cause your home to be safe, right? Which, when you need to analyze and change things, and when you want to improve on things, making safe design decisions might not always be the right thing. You know, it could actually hurt you in what your hopes and your desires are for your space. You know, you don't have to play it safe. And I think to get out of this overwhelm of what's the right choice for me amidst all these choices comes down to thinking it through and being intentional about your why. Why do you want to rearrange your furniture? And then being authentic often means not playing it safe. I think playing it safe can result in cookie cutter style, which doesn't do anything for you on a personal level. Cookie cutter style doesn't help you achieve your personal goals or give you the outcome that you want for your home and for your life. So when we're talking about clutter, and there are so many ways to declutter, right? I mean, we've all seen the reels and the blogs and everything. I mean, there's just been so much around decluttering, right? I mean, Marie Kondo is a specialist in this. She's amazing. I remember several years ago, I got her book because I loved the idea of getting rid of clutter or dealing with clutter. But let's be real. When it comes down to clutter, it really comes down to two things: getting rid of things and finding homes for things. And when you're trying to find a home for things, if you have too many of those things or you can't find a home for it, you should probably just get rid of it, right? It's quite a simple process if you break it down, right? I mean, yes, how it looks in your decluttering and your reorganizing, the way that it looks at the end, that's a thing. But ultimately, when you're decluttering, it's either what are you getting rid of and where are things going? And the reason why I believe it's important to do this is because as soon as you get rid of stuff, it allows you to get to the design. Okay, I'm not saying you should live in this fully minimalistic house. If it's got to be what you need, right? Again, it comes down to your goals and what you're trying to achieve personally. But when you get to the design, you can critique it and think it through and think about how you want it to evolve and change. How others in your home need it to evolve and change. Maybe there's habits that are needing to be instilled. This can all be addressed when you get down to the design. And if you're selective in terms of what day, what week, what hour, you do this to be the most effective, and you tackle first the clutter, and then you evaluate your personal goals and what you're personally needing to achieve in your life. And then you start to critique and analyze your room to support that. And then you restyle or redesign your room, which just ties in your goals, your health, your happiness, efficiency, your well-being, how you show up and thrive in each day. This is how I think we sustain the act of decluttering, because we do the work when we're the most efficient to do it, and we follow through on it, and we do it in a way that boosts our health and our happiness and all of those things. So before I get into some tips and strategies for you, I want to share some positive effects that making good decisions and choosing well has on you. When we make thoughtful, well-informed decisions, especially in the context of our homes and living spaces, and this has a lot to do with what stuff and how much of it we decide to keep, the effects ripple out into every area of our lives. So let's look at some positive impacts that come from good decisions and choosing well. So the first one is a reduction in stress and anxiety. When you've made good decisions based on your values and your goals, you actually feel a sense of relief, right? Because you've aligned with your decision, with what you want, with who you are and what you need. This relief actually allows you to feel a little lighter because you have more mental space. You've cleared the clutter in your head by clearing the clutter in your home, which means you can actually realize your design vision. So, good decisions reduce stress and anxiety. They also cause increased focus and mental clarity. So research says that if you approach decision-making with purpose, it can actually sharpen your ability to focus. And I love this because by reducing choice overload, you clear space in your mind to focus on what's important. And in your home, this means you can start analyzing your design choices with focus, with that clarity. And you're able to see the full potential of each space and its layout without the distraction of too many sort of like competing ideas. Good decision making also improves your self-confidence. So each well-made decision builds confidence in your judgment and ability. And when you see positive results from your choices, like the beautifully designed functional living room that you love, it strengthens your trust in yourself to make personal, good decisions. And the last point I'll make on this is when good decisions are made with your health in mind, they enhance your well-being and satisfaction. So, for instance, if you're designing your room to be calm and a clutter-free space, it actually addresses your need to create a space that promotes personal life choices, which contributes so much to your well-being. Not to mention, if you have made good choices, then you have addressed how you need your room to function. So if you need a certain chair for reading that supports your back, there's physical benefits as well. To make good decisions to enhance your health and your well-being, that really feels good. You're taking care of yourself, and that's a really good feeling. So I've got 4 tips for you to use when you're experiencing that overwhelm, when you feel like you've got a lot of decisions and a lot of choices in front of you. So I'm going to share with you, 4 things that you can start using to help in those moments. So the first one is to limit the number of choices, choice reduction, okay? So research shows that too many options lead to decision paralysis. So you are not going to be able to make decisions properly when there's too many choices. So limiting options helps focus and simplifies the decision-making process. So if you are feeling overwhelmed and you can't make a decision, or you're going in every different direction possible, limit your choices. Dial down what the personal objective is, okay? I stand by using your home as a tool to boost your health and well-being. So if you've been around here for a while, you know that I always suggest using your home as a tool to boost your health and your well-being. So if you start with your personal objective, okay, from a place of growth, okay, this is a good thing. This is a good place to start. So for instance, if you have goals and things you're working towards, designate certain rooms to focus on those primary purposes. And that will help you to limit your choices. So the next is to set room boundaries. I mean, we talk about boundaries. You hear about them in our personal lives, how important it is to set boundaries with people and how it's good for healthy relationships and all of that stuff, right? I mean, we've heard about boundaries, but we don't talk about boundaries in our home. And I think that when you set the function of a space and you've addressed your needs for that space, it's then very important to kind of guard that and to make sure that you're not allowing certain things into that room that don't belong. And that you continuously, if that's how the function of the room needs to be for you, you're looking at that and addressing that continuously. And you're like I said, you're kind of guarding it. You're saying, no, this living room, I need to be chill and relaxed, and this is my space to come and unwind. So I am not going to allow office stuff into this room. I'm not going to allow work things into this room, or toys or whatever it is. You're keeping those boundaries in place so that your spaces are designated properly. And that will also help you keep that clutter out, because it's quite simple to say, the printer paper doesn't live in the living room. This isn't where it belongs, because the living room is used for my chill room or whatever, so it makes the whole system run a lot more efficiently. So the third one is to break decisions into smaller steps, because each sort of decision that you're going to make in your home, it can feel like you want to do one thing. You need to do one thing, but that one thing is made up of a ton of small things, and each thing kind of plays on the next. And it's really important to take that big decision and break it up, and to write down all of the little things that need to happen and be considered. Because if you can do that, this sort of step-by-step process, it kind of gets you going. It reduces your mental fatigue, and it builds confidence as you kind of tackle each one. Because when you look at the big thing, that big decision that needs to be made, that can feel really overwhelming, and that can cause you to get stuck. Whereas if you break it down and then you start working through each and every one of those step by step, that will help you really feel like you're working towards the end goal. And each little step that you make and each little decision that you do, if it's in line with your goals and if it's in line with the use of the space, it's going to build your confidence and get you to that next decision and that next choice. And the last tip I'm going to share is to test and visualize your ideas and your options before you commit. It's really important to make sure that you've weighed your options and you see how it's going to be in your space. And things like mood boards are great for this. You can just pull inspiration images and do all this. I mean, Pinterest is a great thing that you can do. But it's really important if you're up against uncertainty and you can't decide, you're feeling like there's too many choices, once you've gone through some of the suggestions I've made already, if you take your ideas, that the aesthetics of it and how that's looking, and you put it to paper and you just look at it and you really start playing with it and you look at how things are relating. I mean, a great thing to do is even to take photos of the things that you have in your room that you want to keep and include those in it, and then start to introduce all the other things, whether that's the paint colors or the different furnitures or whatever. And the other thing that you can do is actually pull in furniture pieces from other rooms if you want to test furniture layouts and clearances and all of that. So really get creative in how you can visualize the options before you commit to them. One of the last little things, this is an added little tip, but this is really, really important. And I can't stress how important this is, but to set aside time every several months, let's say every 3 to 6 months, to really reflect on how your space is serving you. You know, are there areas that are feeling congested or overcomplicated? Are the design choices still supporting your daily routines, right? And use this reflection time to really reassess your design, to question whether you're sticking to those boundaries, if it's really serving you in the ways that you hoped, with changing your habits or boosting your energy, a calming space, or becoming that avid reader that you want to be, or whatever it is. You get to assess. And that's really important. And I would almost say to do this every 3 months. And I've said in previous episodes how important it is to include others in the home in this process, because as much as often it is one person in the home that makes the call on how things ultimately look, there's more than one typically that shares the home, right? So if you do live with others, if you have kids or whatever, involve the others in the process, because if everyone's needs are met and everyone's goals are being worked towards, it's a really beautiful thing, and the design will reflect that. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Your Home by Design. I hope today's insights have inspired you to take a closer look at how decision-making impacts your home and ultimately your well-being. Remember, every thoughtful choice you make in your space has the potential to transform it into a place that supports your goals, reduces stress, and reflects your true self. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who might need some design inspiration. I'd love to hear your thoughts and see your spaces, so connect with me on Instagram or drop me a message. Until next time, keep creating space for what matters most. Thanks so much for listening today. If you found this episode helpful, the best way to support the show is to follow along and share it with someone who'd love it too. And if you'd like to go a step further, you can become one of our Better Living backers. It's a small monthly contribution that helps keep the show going. And as a thank you, I'll send you a personal note along with a 15% discount for the Create Space course when it launches. You can find the Support the Show link right in the show notes. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for creating space with me.